You're listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast with Jody Livingston and Chris Trent, episode number 81.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast, helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, your hosts, Jody Livingston and Chris Trent.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Thanks for tuning in and listening wherever you are and wherever this finds you. Thanks for making this podcast today a part of your day. If it's your first time listening, welcome. Thanks for checking out the show. If you're a returning listener, part of the Longer Haul community, maybe even a part of the super secret podcast group, thanks for coming on back. Show notes today will be at thelongerhaul.com/episode 081. And we'll probably have a few links on there today.
So yeah, I'm thinking so. There'll be a few.
But make sure you subscribe to the show so you get it every time it comes out. And like wherever you find and listen to podcasts, be it iTunes or your favorite podcast player, or maybe you're listening on thelongerhaul.com. I don't know. Somewhere. Anyway.
Somewhere. So, hey, he is the incredibly amazing radio sounding voice on the other side there. That's Jody.
Sure.
That's Jody Livingston. He's a youth pastor out in California. I'm Chris Trent. I'm a youth pastor in Georgia. And we're just a couple guys that both believe in youth ministry for the Longer Haul. And we appreciate you coming and joining us. When we're not doing podcasts, we're hanging out with teenagers. And speaking of hanging out with teenagers, I had one up at the office just a little bit ago, and we think we're going to put a dartboard in one of our offices because we just want to play some darts. Do you play darts, Jody?
No. I mean, I did have.
Yeah.
But
I think about it do it like in our middle school room. Just get a bunch of dartboards. What could go wrong for real? Like darts in middle schoolers. Sounds great.
Sounds like amazing team building exercise.
Yeah. It sounds very old and dated when I say darts. I know that's not very, cool or whatever.
When you say darts, I think of this place when I was growing up. It was like this a place called Poor Richard's Deli.
Yeah.
In East Tennessee.
People play darts there?
You played darts there, and they had amazing sandwiches.
I'm saying.
But it was like it was like this backwoods kind of, not what you think of when I say deli. Near a college campus.
Well, I can unpack my whole entry level here into darts in these recent months, but we won't do that right now. but all I know is I'm getting to play with my son and a bunch of his buddies, and we're all kind of digging it, and it works for whatever reason. It's kind of lame, I guess, but we're having a good time. But we do think we're going to put one in our student ministry office because it'd be something to do every once in a while. And I think the dentist next door, I think we're going to put it on that wall that matches there, so they'll hear thud.
Dr. Hurt.
Thud. Yeah, it is Dr. Hurt. How do you remember that?
How do you not remember that?
I know. Thud.
What kind of dentist? Dr. Hurt. Thud. I think you have to be a dentist.
Thud.
What are you going to do with your life? Well, I have to be a dentist. My last name's Hurt.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so, you know what's funny is her maiden name was Dr. Payne. I'm You're kidding. Lying. It's not. You should have a little sound effect for that. So anyway, hey, yeah, but we love kids, man. So how are you? You good? So we just hung out so Jody and I, we just hung out in person together. We never see each other live anymore. We rarely saw each other when you lived in Georgia, unless we were meeting up at Chewy's. I went recently, bro. So good. I've just stopped sending you videos. I go so often. True. But we hung out in Chattanooga, Tennessee over this past weekend. Had an amazing time up at what they call the Southeast Conclave. It's been going on for a whole lot of years, but it's basically it's kind of a Baptist-y kind of thing. It is a Baptist-y kind of thing. A whole bunch of youth pastors, mostly from the South. The 5 or 6 states get together and they come together and they host this youth ministry convention. So think of like a smaller scale version of like youth specialties or like simply youth ministry, some of those type things. Although I say smaller scale only in the sense that there's maybe a few less people there. But from a quality standpoint, it's really, really good.
It's top notch.
So it's good stuff. So yeah, we've been hanging out there, man. So it was good to see you live and in person. You barely made it to the conference, if I'm not mistaken. Though, is that true?
Yeah, there and back. Yeah, so
I didn't even talk to you about that on the way back yet. Was it bad too?
it was funny, man. So we landed. We flew in. I brought my junior high guy in with me. So that was fun.
Don't you sound like such a big time youth pastor now?
No.
You just use the words "my junior high guy," like somehow he's like.
He's not mine. I mean, like here with me, I could have said like my children's guy, but I don't like.
Yep.
It's just
You're one step away from being a pastor, is what you are, Jody. Anyway, go ahead.
One day I'll be a real pastor. Anyway, so that was fun to kind of hang out with him, especially kind of being new here and for us. So we get to the airport.
He's cool, by the way. I love Reggie. I don't know if he listens to the podcast or not, but if he does, what up, Reggie?
Yeah.
I love him. He's great.
And so we get to the airport and no one came to get us. So we're like, that's okay. It's not far. We'll just take an Uber from the airport.
If only you had a guy there at the conference that you do a podcast with that would have loved you enough to come get you.
People who asked me to come teach for them.
Yeah.
So we grab our bags and we step out, and there's a few Ubers lined up already, and we're waiting on ours, and these are pretty nice, And so those pull away, and we're waiting, and then ours comes up, and it's like this super sketchy minivan, and so the lady, the Uber driver, gets out. She's a little scary, and she opens the back, and there's like all this stuff in the back of the van. She's like, "You can just throw your bags on top of all that." and Reggie, right now, he's like,
"Welcome to the South, there, Reggie."
Yeah, this is not a California Uber, and so it was quite the adventure. She's trying to tell us all these things about Chattanooga, which I had mentioned a few times. Like, we used to come a lot. I actually grew up not too far from here. I worked in Atlanta. Like, she was determined to give me the details that I already knew, and and her driving was pretty scary too. There's only a couple, but I'm used to that now. I've been here in California long enough to. Yeah, so it was like we got out and we got into the hotel, and Reggie's like, "Dude, what was that?"
That's awesome.
Yeah, on the way back, my last breakout was at 9:45.
Yeah,
ended at 9:45, and then my flight.
I didn't get to say bye to you, dude. You were just gone.
Well, because my flight was at 11.
Yeah,
and Chattanooga Airport's not that big, so we made it fine there. We had a connection in Charlotte. We get to Charlotte it was like a 3-hour layover, and we went and grabbed something to eat. Come back, we're sitting at the gate, and they're kind of getting ready to board, and then they come across and tell us there's a mechanical issue in the plane, that the maintenance folks are taking care of it. They'll update us as we go. And then they keep announcing, still working on it. And then finally the guy comes across and he goes, this is his exact words, okay? "This plane is no good."
Oh, no, he did not.
Yes, he did. I promise you. This plane is no good. We're looking for
I'd never fly again. I would be done.
He said, no, it gets better. "We're looking for a plane that is good. And when we find one, we will let you know." And so eventually they said, "You're going to a different gate." And we went to a plane apparently that was good, and flew back. But yeah, it was
I don't think I could have flown. I think I'd be done. I recently watched, I know it's old, it's been around a little bit, but I recently watched Sully with Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah.
Like it was on like TBS or something, and
such a good movie.
And it was great, but the whole time I'm like, yeah, I don't want to fly anymore. So
yeah.
Because the odds of me landing on the Hudson ain't good.
We were leaving. We were taking some high school students down to El Salvador one year, and it was like the first year we went. Okay, so we're on the plane, and we're sitting on the plane. They close the door, and then they come. We're waiting. Finally, the pilot comes across and he says, "There's an issue with one of the generators. We need this many generators to fly. We're one short, so they're working on repairing that. As soon as that's done, we'll be on our way." We're waiting. So finally he's like, "Can't get it done. We're going to have to pull back up to the gate, and we've got vouchers for you for meals," which, by the way, didn't cover all the meal. And then, so we get off the plane, we deplane or whatever, and we get on the next flight, the replacement plane. He starts backing away, and the power goes out on the plane. like everything just goes dark except for the aisle that does illuminate, by the way, when the power goes out. And we're like, oh my gosh, what does he do? He starts the plane back up, backs out, and we take off. And so for like the next 3 hours, I'm like, okay, the first plane we couldn't take because the generator didn't work, but it seemed to be running fine. This plane died when we were leaving, but it was okay to fly. It was super sketch.
Well,
but we made it.
and the fact that you're on a mission trip should make you nervous, because I was on a mission trip same way to Africa with all of our student ministry staff, and some of the wives went, some of the spouses went as well. And at one moment, I was kind of up in front of a bunch of them, and I sat up in my chair and I turned around and I was like, "You guys do realize this is a revival waiting to happen, right?" Like, what pastor couldn't stand up at any of our funerals and talk about how much we love Jesus so much, or how we love Jesus so much that we were going to Africa on a mission trip to tell others give an invitation and tons of people come to Christ, right? So
that's right.
You should be nervous anyway. Well, we're way off the beaten path. Side note, if you're listening up to this point and you're sitting here going, are you guys going to get to what the episode's about? Well, this one's going to be a little bit different, a little bit of fluff on the front end, and we've got a shorter interview on the back end coming with a guy named Seth. We'll tell you about that in a minute, but a little bit more about Conclave, though, because it was such a great weekend for us, right? So now let's talk about this first. So the first thing was really cool. We appreciated the opportunity so much because they allowed us to do side stage interviews, what they called them, in the exhibit hall. And we had like a little area there, and we ended up, and we're going to be rolling these out in the weeks to come, but we ended up getting like 5 really solid interviews, and folks would come. And, at first people weren't really watching that much. We didn't have the setup quite right. Next year, if we get to do it, we'll do it differently, but we ended up getting really good interviews with folks.
Yeah, they were good. They were short, right? Because it was like 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, it had to be 15 minutes because it was in the exhibit hall.
15.
Yeah.
But they were great. And this one today is awesome.
Really good.
Super awesome.
And then we were busy. We also you taught one breakout, I taught 2 different breakouts, and your breakout was on longevity.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So apparently that's the only thing I can talk about.
Yep. Well, I popped in and watched the 3 minutes I was in there. You were killing it. So good job.
It was good. The problem was that breakout was the very last of Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And we had been talking all weekend.
Oh yeah,
right?
totally.
And so by the time I got to Saturday, man, my voice.
Oh, my voice is still shot from the weekend.
I was living on throat coat.
Yep. Seriously.
Which is not an official sponsor of this podcast.
Should be.
Yeah,
so that was good. I did a lunch and learn for new folks where I basically did a talk from the book. I might consider this a youth pastor's guide to longevity. And so I did that. And then I did another one, right? I was back to back. Then I did actually a talk from the new book that's coming out sometime over the summer, probably. What a youth pastor needs from a youth worker. Don't laugh at me, Jody. Listen, you've not felt my pain yet. So,
no.
So anyway, so yeah, but man, I love that setting where you get to hang out with people and have conversations and talk life. And sometimes it's life, sometimes it's ministry. Sometimes it's
great.
Nuts and bolts. Sometimes it's, man, I'm just going through this personally. For me personally, though, it's not just, I do find myself doing a whole lot more giving in these moments now, where it's more like I'm just trying to minister to people, to hang out with people and encourage and all that. But I always come away with something, and I had a couple conversations with some folks with the things I'm going through as a student pastor that were very timely and very good for me to hear and be reminded of. And the lunches and dinners I had with different folks were just point. I mean, they were great. So it's huge. So
no, it was good. And I think it's always encouraging just to be around other youth pastors, youth workers, and kind of we're all in it together, with the same goal. And, it's I'm with you. A lot of conversations throughout the weekend of just asking, helping folks walk through things and receiving kind of that on the other end as well for stuff. And I think especially because, for you, if you've been listening to the podcast, we've talked through kind of my whole journey to get here to California. And
Yeah.
I think in light of that, there were a lot of folks that had kind of listened in on that and heard that and were asking.
Yeah. And shout out, by the way, to all the folks that were at Conclave that listen, man. It was so encouraging to see y'all.
So many.
You guys were super encouraging to us. Thank you for that. So that was huge. We also, for the first time, they asked us to do like a welcome type thing. We got to do a main stage moment together, and then you'd already gone, or we would have done another one. But I did the second one by myself. But it was super cool just to get to kind of go up in front of everybody, and tough crowd and when we did. But
it's early morning. Nobody
early, and everybody's like, "Yeah, we're not going to laugh there, big guys." But
no, you guys, you're not funny.
Yeah. So, but it was fun. Yeah. It was good, man.
It's because of Chewbacca.
Out of all that, I would just say, listeners, just here's what I would say. Whether it's a smaller version of like a training moment or a bigger conference type moment, and even if you couldn't do it every year, finding something wherever you are, even to our Australian friends that are listening now. Hey, shout out. Yeah. What up? They just joined the podcast group. A couple Australian people. It's awesome.
That's been happening, and that you just discovered this.
Yeah, I know. True.
You just realized this.
Yeah, sure. But finding some type of moment where you can get around other youth pastors, and it could even be a lot smaller. Like, I know of some folks even in Atlanta that they meet once a month for a training moment. Together. Yeah. And whatever that looks like, though, just getting together, it just really makes a difference. It's just good, so
it's just encouraging.
Yeah. I was super encouraged by the YM360 folks, by the way. They were there.
Always.
And they're one of our sponsors. They helped make this thing happen. It was especially cool to get to see Jake, who is really kind of our point person, who really digs in and helps us, connect all the dots on this thing. But, and they were just killing it again. Just love it. They had a big old booth area, and they were just hanging out with youth pastors, encouraging youth pastors, and obviously making all of the things they do known, as far as the camp and the resources and the DNOW resources and all of those things. But if you need something, man, for real, we do believe in those guys. They were super encouraged. Matter of fact, I mentioned earlier, one of the conversations I had was with one of the co-founder guys, Les, who really spent some time with me processing. He and I walked, Wendy and Les and I walked to the diner together. Did you go to the diner while you were there? Wait, you were there. You ate with us. What am I talking about?
Together.
Yeah. So, but I talked to Les we met you there. You went ahead. Yeah, I remember that. You were ahead of us. You went ahead and got the seat, but we ended up walking with Les. I don't even know if you knew that or not. And the whole time he was just pouring into me, talking about how he builds team and culture, because he helps lead that at YM360, which is something that's heavy on me right now, or in a good way, but it's something that's weighing on me right now. And so
we should have him on to talk about that.
Dude, wouldn't that be great? We should have him on to talk about that.
Yep. We should have him on to talk about that.
Because it applies even if you're not here's where it applies. Even if you're not doing, say you're just the person by yourself or whatever. I get that a lot of folks aren't necessarily blessed to be on a team with other youth pastory people, right? But even with volunteers, you have to build a culture.
Yeah. Sure. You still have a team.
You still have a team.
It's just going to
you should.
Differently.
You should.
We've talked about that enough. If you've listened long enough, hopefully.
So anyway, shout out to those guys. And today, though, here's what's really cool. We mentioned YM360, but we also have someone else we want to mention today for the first time.
About the promo code.
Oh, the promo code. Mention it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. So go to YM360, use the promo code Longer Haul.
Longer Haul. Yes.
You can, not the Longer Haul, not the Longer Haul.
Yeah, Longer Haul.
Just Longer Haul. And you'll save 20% on
for
stuff.
Real. And seriously, thank y'all for doing that, the folks that have done that, because that helped YM360 decide to continue to sponsor us, and they're going to, and that's why the partnership is staying there. So that's good.
Yeah, because we show them, we say, no, people really listen. I mean, all 12 of them.
Yeah.
They faithfully
Yeah,
listen.
whatever.
These
Okay.
people.
So, but then also we have now, and it's kind of like a sponsor, but it's also really just some folks that believe in us and have just blessed us with a gift saying, hey, we support you, right?
Yep.
And helping us to pull this thing off financially so it's not all out of our pocket, right? So we want to give it, and a matter of fact, it's tied to Conclave a little bit in the sense that they help do Conclave. And that's the student ministry folk at the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. Now, that's a mouthful, right? I know,
Yeah, it is.
granted,
For
and
sure.
they know this. But long story short, if you're not a Baptist guy, person, gal, long story short, in like this, there's a Georgia Baptist, what used to be a Georgia Baptist Convention. Now they call themselves the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. Great people that are all about resourcing the church, the local church, right? So that said, there's a student ministry portion of that. Ricky Smith, Mike Ricks, and a bunch of those folks are super supportive of what we're doing. But they're there for you, and they believe in youth pastors so much. They were kind of like, "Hey, here, we're gonna help you pay for this thing financially, so that you guys can just continue to equip youth pastors, no strings attached."
So, and I would just say too, like, and they were really clear about this. This isn't a Baptist thing in that regard. Like,
Not at
they
all.
want to help, and they have a ton of resources that I would steer anybody to, regardless of whether you fall in line, denominationally in line with that or not. Like, they're doing some really, really good stuff.
Great stuff there. Do me a favor, check out studentministrynetwork.com. And even if you just wanted to drop them a line and saying, thanks for supporting the Longer Haul podcast, that'd mean a lot to us.
It'd mean a lot to us,
yeah, but you don't have to. Great, but they do. They've got some podcasts on there. They've got a blog. They've got some great articles. They've got some posts. Just some things that'll help you out. And they really are a group of folks that would be willing to help you out, even if you're not Georgia and even if you're not Baptist.
Yep,
they do have some conferencey things. They've got like camp that's great as well. Just so check it out.
Good stuff.
Studentministrynetwork.com will take you to kind of their landing page for all of those things.
Indeed. Well, should we get into here with our conversation with Seth?
Yes. Listen. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me say this. So just if you're listening, just so you know, as we are going to roll these out, like Chris said, but we were recording these kind of in the expo hall. So you're going to hear kind of all of that in the background as we're talking, which is kind of cool.
Jody, you're such an audio junkie. You're so, which
bothers me.
I love because our podcast does sound good, I think. But that said, I think people will be okay. It's recorded in a big old room with a bunch of people everywhere, man. It's going to be loud.
Just giving them a heads up.
It's no different than the sound effects that I often add with my phone's ringing or used to be my Ring doorbell.
Yeah, the doorbell. You still have that thing?
I got it all figured. I'm muting it now, dude. I got that thing. Okay. And it's just part of the deal, man. We're keeping it real. Cool. Today's interview, Seth.
Oh, my gosh.
Seth Buckley.
He's amazing.
He's a youth pastor up in South Carolina. And he's older than I am, which makes him getting on up there. He's probably got maybe 7-8 years on me. And I'm talking about, he's just one of those guys when you just sit down with him.
Yeah, he just oozes wisdom.
And encouragement. I mean, it's just like, dang, bro. He's an Alabama fan, which is, hey, listen to this. He didn't even mention this.
Is he really from South Carolina and being an Alabama fan?
He played his first year was Bear Bryant's, Coach Bear Bryant's last year. He played for Bear Bryant, Coach Bear Bryant.
Oh, good for him.
Okay, come on now. You know that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah. Literally every Alabama fan or college football fan just realized how little you know about that. So that's
I know
Coach
a lot about
Bear
that,
Bryant.
but I grew up in Tennessee, man. I don't.
Oh, that's what that's about. We kicked your butt a lot. So
anyway, so Seth dropped some crazy wisdom. We're hoping we're going to have him back on later for a longer interview and episode, but I think you'll really enjoy this little short snippet today because, man, he dropped some serious wisdom. Particularly when it comes to this idea of balance, right?
Yes. So when you get to the point in the show when he is talking about, you'll hear him talk about being in a military town.
Yeah, don't give it away.
I'm not going to give it away.
Good.
I'm not going to give it away. But when you hear him start talking about the way families treat the mom or the dad, you need to rewind and listen to that a couple times. It is.
That was good.
I mean, you and I were sitting there going.
Your wife Wendy was literally standing up there listening, like in tears.
Yes,
it was amazing.
No joke. Like legitimately, she was in tears. But she also does. She also like cries 2.5 hard cries every episode of This Is Us. So she cries easy. So I'm just saying. But she's awesome like that. It's because she has such she just looked literally out of the house and she just glared at me from upstairs. It's because she has such a sweet spirit about her.
She's amazing.
She's just so sweet.
I mean, she's putting up with you.
Yeah.
I would cry too. If I had to put up with you every day, all day, I'd cry at everything.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, man, it was good. It's good. It's worth listening.
It's really good.
So enough of us, man. That's our intro.
We'll jump in here.
It's about a 15-minute deal. So good times.
It's good. Yeah. Enjoy this. Here we go.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Man, Seth has been doing this a while. So what's up, man? How you doing? You good?
Great. Just glad to be with you guys, man. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So Seth, do this right here. So tell us how you got started in youth ministry, maybe a little bit of history. I don't know if maybe you were in a youth ministry as a kid. I don't know.
Right.
But give us a little kind of quick history there.
I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a minister, so ministry was kind of part of the DNA, I guess. And so my freshman year of college, I started as a part-time youth minister. And so really kind of fast forward through the college years, went straight out of college into full-time youth ministry. And so that started in the fall of 1982. So
wow.
You do the math. And
it's rare that I get to pull this card right here, Jody. I was 12 years old. You could have been my youth pastor. That's
scary. That is scary.
Seth, fun fact, Chris could have been my youth pastor.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually true.
The circle's complete now.
The circle's complete.
The circle's complete.
It's awesome.
So, 37 years in youth ministry, 4 years part-time, but then full-time the other 30 some odd. And have been, just a few churches too, because I feel like when you go somewhere to serve, you need to plant your feet and stay there a while. And so I've only been in 3 churches.
All these years?
So this year, yeah.
Why the heck are you still doing youth ministry, Seth? Let's get real for a second. Like, what's up with it? I mean, you've been doing this a while.
I just can't find another job, man.
You aged out. Nobody's getting calls anymore.
No, I think there comes a point in youth ministry where you figure out that, you learn the art of delegation and really involving and equipping the saints for the work of ministry, Ephesians 4:11 and 12.
Yep.
And that's really one of the things that's so important. If you want to stay in youth ministry a long time, you better figure that out early or you won't last. Because as your ministry grows, you can't do it. You've got to multiply by involving other people. And so I've loved the journey of developing leaders and discipling youth workers and parents along the way, because I think youth ministry's in a threefold component, youth workers, and parents. And the older I've grown, I'm spending more of my time with leaders and parents and equipping those leaders to take time out with the kids. And I can't play paintball like I used to.
Yeah.
I still like to go at it. You know what I'm saying?
Are you a little bit bigger target than you used to be?
A little bigger target, a little slower moving target. Okay, but I've got volunteers and staff members that are more engaged like that, and that's cool. I'm totally cool with that, and so I love seeing that journey come full circle.
Man, that's good. That's good.
So, tell us a little. You've been doing this a long time. You've seen some longevity at even individual churches and ministries. Like, tell us some of the benefits you've seen flesh out from that versus maybe even some that you wouldn't have expected.
Well, one of the things that I think is critically important that every youth minister recognizes is that you're really not going to gain the trust of the people that you're serving until you're in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of turnover that happens after year 2 because a lot of the guys or gals feel like they just don't have the trust of the people. Well, you got to invest.
Yeah.
And so staying where you are and trusting the process of investing in people. And when that trust emerges, then you begin to see the fruit of it. And it's worth staying.
So how long have you been at the church you're at now?
Okay, I'm in my 23rd year at First Baptist Spartanburg.
So did you approach it differently coming into this position,
Yeah.
if you can remember back that far?
Jody, it's our guest, man. Stop it.
No, I'm being serious. Like, I don't know.
I know the beard's gray too, so I know, but
I'm just saying that's a long time in one spot. So when you came in and establishing a new presence in a ministry that you've seen.
all right, fair question. You know, my first tenure was like 7 years.
Yeah. Which is still like.
Yeah, so I was like, man, I was fully engaged and I was doing everything. I felt like I'm not saying I was the Lone Ranger because I was being tutored by Richard Ross even then and learning about youth workers. But when I went to the next place, I was there over 5 years and I began to see the value of investing in parents and workers. And so when I came to Spartanburg, I pretty much had a template like, okay, this is how I'm going to initiate this ministry. We're going full bore into thirds, youth workers, and parents.
Yeah.
And so we hit the ground running. And, over time, parents have begun to look at me differently because I'm now a peer in some ways because I've
That's
raised 4 boys. And that makes a big difference.
Was that a culture shift for them? And you're talking about going into those thirds from what they had done in the past?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and every youth minister is different in how they approach things. I think some have their wheelhouse may be the big programs on Wednesday night. Some may be on other things. My wheelhouse is the discipleship model. And so I like equipping a lot of leaders to have home groups.
Yeah.
And that was a different concept. They had not had that before. And so we still do the Wednesday night deal and put a lot of effort in that. But we put if you had to say one we're laser focused on, it's investing in leaders to do the small group experience.
Okay. I have a question later I'll ask you about
Good. So coming into this, I just, knowing that you've done this for a long time and, Jody and I doing the Longer Haul podcast, obviously this is something we're real passionate about in terms of staying in youth ministry for the long term, both in your current situation and long term as a career, right? So that said, you're a model of that. So what I asked you coming into it was I just said, hey, can you just jot down kind of just real quick for yourself, what are some of the keys you've learned that you feel like has helped you to be successful in continuing to do this?
Yep.
So, and you jotted down, I think, a few ideas. So I wonder if you would share this with us.
Yeah, and at first glance, somebody, if they were to see the list, they're going to go, okay, that really is not rocket science.
None of this is going to be, let's just call it like that. None of this is going to be rocket science.
It's not, but it's things sometimes we don't do.
We forget.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
very first thing is your personal spiritual journey with the Lord has got to be fresh.
Okay.
Because you're going to have desert moments in ministry, and you've got to have that connection with the Lord. It's got to be something fresh that you're constantly striving to renew.
What are you doing these days? Anything practical you're doing these days? Because most people kind of go, they do different things over the years. They go, anything that you're using right now that's really good for you?
I am currently revisiting Henry Blackaby's day-by-day devotional.
Sweet.
I did it probably 8 years ago and have not done it. And so this year I've kind of started back with that. And it's a fresh, for me, it's just been a great journey because my number 3 son is doing the same one.
And
it's kind of something cool
Come
to
on now.
do together.
Come on now.
Which leads me to the second thing is in ministry, your family needs to be your highest priority. Outside of your faith in the Lord, your family has to take a higher priority than church. And so that sounds crazy to some people. They're like, that's not biblical. I'm like, actually it is.
Yeah.
So family, I'm going to wheel through these, and then we can come back and revisit. Understand the mandate of delegation in Ephesians 4:11 and 12. That's a mandate. That's not an option. You've got to learn to delegate and equip the saints for the work of ministry. Remember that there's one senior pastor in the church, and it's not you.
Oh, snap. Snap.
And that's that's tough to swallow because
now your church right now, you've had the same pastor the whole time, right?
The
whole time, 23 years.
And here's the deal. Most youth ministers have ego problems.
I will not sit here, Seth Buckley, and let you speak truth to all of us like that right now.
Here's the deal.
This is conclave, man. We're supposed to be encouraging.
Most senior pastors have ego problems.
True.
Okay.
Yes. Both of those.
I was about to
say, amen.
But so when you put those two in a room, okay, you're going to yield. But when you're outside of that room, that youth pastor better still understand he's still the senior pastor. And so the loyalty issue leads to longevity because my pastor knows that I'm loyal to him.
That's good.
No matter where I am.
Come on.
And that. So anyway,
which helps you experience longevity there in a significant way because of the fact that he's got your back.
No doubt.
Because he knows you have his back.
I could give you I could give you countless illustrations where my pastor has literally taken bullets for me and never blinked an eye.
Boom.
I love my pastor. He's something. He's a dear friend. So, and one of the last ones here is understand that your effectiveness of your ministry is not dependent on your cool points. Okay?
Praise God.
It's the calling of God on your life.
Yes.
And how you flesh that out and live that out within the body. So I think a lot of guys, we feel like, they see somebody with the hair or the pants or the shirt or whatever.
Not
I'm
me.
like, gosh, I'm not hip.
I ain't got no hair.
I'm sorry. Touchy subject.
Don't touch it, please. It's not worth touching.
But, you can't dress cool enough to win the kids over. God's calling on your life is the anointing and the power through which God uses to speak to kids. I mean, some guys that students listen to or gals listen to, if you were to measure up the cool points, they're not there. But students gravitate to them because they're authentic, they're real, they're transparent, and they want what's best for the kids and the kingdom work. So, anyway, that's kind of a few. You probably could flesh out a few more, but those are some of the biggies.
Yeah. I love the way you talk about family. And here's the deal. I follow you on the Instagram, the old Instagram. I'm old because I call it Instagram. But here's the deal. You live out what you preach when it comes to your family, man, because all I see is pictures of you and your boys. And I know that your boys mean the world to you, man.
I'll be honest with you, I can't talk a long time because the tears will start flowing. But
because of the love you have for your sons.
My bride and my boys are the world to me.
Balance that out for me, though, because there are days where you did not get to be home because of church. And that doesn't, because I think I know you well enough to know you're not saying that you don't do your job. Because sometimes your job is going to cost you time with your family.
Right, and I think this is important because we've had this conversation a few times where I hear a lot of youth pastors talk about, balancing family and ministry, or, I'm not going to put my family on the altar. And what it ends up being is them kind of not doing their job,
right?
And using the family almost as kind of the reason. So how does that flesh out for you?
One of this may, for some people, may take this in the wrong way, and hopefully they'll take it the right way. But we have a lot of folks in our church that are military families, and so when the soldiers go off to serve our country, they're absent from the family, but there's a spirit of pride in the family knowing that their mom or dad is serving our nation.
Yeah.
And so using that analogy, my children many times know that I'm not there, but they know that I'm doing battle for the King. And so, man, they're like, no, Daddy's not here this week because he's on a mission trip, and they're praying for me every night.
Yeah.
And I get to call them every night, and man, there's no greater honor than to serve our King and for my kids to know that they're kind of sent their dad off to do that work. So it's all on how you approach it.
My goodness, I wish we had a lot more time, but we're keeping this at 15 minutes, so we're going to cut it down here. Anything else? Last things here?
No, I think it's great, I hope folks hear what you're saying, and because what I hear is like lead with humility.
Yeah, exactly.
First, be dedicated to the calling, both as a husband, as a father, and as a youth pastor, and just love on and chase after students. That's pretty simple. So
yeah, man, that's awesome, Seth. We can't thank you enough for coming hanging out with us for a minute.
Appreciate what y'all are
and
doing.
Listen, man, you can rest assured we're going to get you back for a longer episode on the longer haul. So this is a quick one we're doing here for Conclave, and this is an awesome conference. As a matter of fact, they're starting to talk over us. So thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Thanks, Jody.
See you, dude. Thanks.
Well, so there you go. Was that good? That was good.
It was amazing. You were right.
Seth.
I mean, I knew you were right because I was there.
You were there. Great guy.
It was good.
Great guy. So yeah, thank y'all for listening to that, man. And again, we're going to try to have him back on or dig into some stuff. I think he's one of these guys, and I've thought about every once in a while how it might be fun to have a kind of a regular guest. Hey, guess who's back? Seth's back. I mean, he's one of those guys that could just ever so often come in and go, let's just dive deep into this thing, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man.
He should have wrote my book. Like, I should have just take my name off and put his name on it, let him fix it up and make it better. That's what.
But you know what? But you know what?
What's that?
He didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't write it. So.
Don't forget our sponsors. Don't forget YM360. Those guys are awesome. Longer haul for your promo code there. And also big shout out to the student ministry folks at the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. You can find them at the studentministrynetwork.com. Great people.
Indeed. Show notes are over at thelongerhaul.com/episode 081. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do that. And be sure to jump in and join the super secret Longer Haul Facebook group. We're having a blast in there. It's good times. A lot of giveaways. We got some giveaways we still have to do in there, by the way.
Yeah, man.
So anyway, I think that'll do it for today, right?
That is it. Take care.
Right. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast at www.thelongerhaul.com.